Have you ever been in the middle of a high-stakes argument, feeling a righteous white-hot fire in your chest, ready to defend your boundaries or your truth? And then suddenly, your vision blurs. You feel that familiar, dreaded lump in your throat. Your voice cracks, and against your absolute will, a hot tear spills over. You aren't sad. In fact, you might be the furthest thing from sad. You are furious. You are frustrated. You are deeply invested. But your body is performing an act you didn't authorize. You watch the person across from you, and you see their expression shift. Their defensiveness vanishes, replaced by something far more insulting. Pity or dismissal. They say it. The sentence that feels like a slap. Why are you crying? It's not that big of a deal, or you're being too sensitive. In that microsecond, the humiliation is physical. You feel like a child having a tantrum when all you wanted was to be a grounded, assertive adult. You walk away feeling like you lost the conflict, not because your logic was flawed, but because your biology betrayed you. You go to the bathroom, look in the mirror at your blotchy face, and wonder why you are so broken. If you have spent your life apologizing for your tears, I want to offer you a completely different reality. You have been told you are fragile, but the science suggests the exact opposite. You are not crying because you lack capacity. You are crying because you have an excess of caring. Today we are going to dismantle the angry crying shame and install a new operating system, the logic seesaw. To understand why you cry when you're angry, we have to move away from personality labels and look at your hardware. You aren't dramatic. You are what psychologists call a highly sensitive person, HSP, or what I prefer to call a super sensor. Think of the human brain like a camera sensor. Most people, the dandelions of the population, record the world in standard definition. It's an efficient, low-energy picture. They stay cool in an argument because they are only 50% invested. They possess a natural muted detachment, but your brain is recording in 8K resolution. Your hardware lacks the standard filters others have, a biological trait known as low latent inhibition. While a dandelion only hears the words being said, you are processing the microconstriction in their jaw, the slight condescension in their tone, the historical weight of every time they've ignored you, and the systemic injustice of the entire situation, all at once. You aren't running a standard program. You are running a high-render simulation at 150% capacity. This creates massive internal friction. Think about a professional marathon runner. As they sprint, their internal core temperature spikes. If that heat stayed trapped, their organs would fail. So what does the body do? It releases water to cool the skin. We call it sweat. We don't look at a sweating athlete and think, wow, they are so weak. We think their engine is working incredibly hard. Angry crying is just emotional sweating. When your nervous system is sprinting in a high-stakes conflict, your physiological arousal reaches a critical limit. To prevent a total systemic overload, or a cardiac spike, your brain activates the parasympathetic nervous system. It floods your system with acetylcholine to force your heart rate down and regulate your temperature. The visible byproduct of this emergency cooling process is tears. The next time you feel the sting in your eyes, I want you to reframe the shame. Tell yourself, I am not breaking down. I am just emotionally sweating. My body is cooling the engine so I can stay in the race. But why the face? Why can't we just internally sweat? This is where evolutionary biology reveals a hidden layer of protection. Imagine your subconscious mind is governed by an ancient, overprotective bodyguard. This bodyguard loves you fiercely, but it is very old-fashioned. It doesn't know the difference between a performance review with a passive-aggressive boss and a life-or-death encounter with a predator on the savannah. When the conflict reaches a certain decibel or emotional frequency, your bodyguard gets terrified for you. It thinks, this aggression is too high. If we keep fighting, we might get physically hurt. So it steps in front of you and forces you to cry. It's not sabotaging your argument, it's deploying a chemical blanket. Recent studies have found that human tears contain an odorless pheromone. When an opponent, especially one with high testosterone, is in close proximity to these tears, their own testosterone levels actually drop. Their brain's aggression centers begin to power down. Evolutionarily, tears are a white flag encoded in salt water. They are a biological de-escalation signal that screams, lower your weapons, stop attacking. Your body isn't betting against you. It is trying to ensure you survive the encounter. However, In the modern world, this white flag feels like a weakness. You can actually negotiate with this bodyguard. When you feel the tears, acknowledge the intent. Thank you for trying to keep me safe, but I am not in physical danger. I don't need the shield right now. By naming the process, you strip it of its power to humiliate you. Now we get to the core framework, the logic seesaw. Inside your cranium, there is a constant, brutal competition for resources. On one side, you have the limbic system, the emotional headquarters that manages your ancient bodyguard, your fight-flight response, and your tear ducts. On the other side, you have the prefrontal cortex, PFC, the CEO of your brain, responsible for logic, vocabulary, strategy, and assertive communication. These two systems share a limited, finite blood supply. They operate exactly like a seesaw. When one goes up, the other must come down. When you are in a state of high emotional heat, the amygdala sounds the alarm. The brain redirects oxygen-rich blood away from the PFC and pumps it into the limbic system. Your emotions go up, and as a mechanical result, your logic goes down. This is why the moment you start to cry, you suddenly can't remember that brilliant point you practiced in the shower. Your vocabulary shrinks. You feel scattered and foggy. It's not because you're unintelligent. It's because the logic side of your seesaw is physically starved of oxygen. The goal of managing angry tears is not to stop being emotional. That's like trying to stop the tide. The goal is to manually force the blood flow back to the other side of the seesaw. You aren't fighting the emotion. You are re-engaging the machine. To balance the seesaw, we use interrupts, physical and cognitive hacks that force your logic brain to wake up and your bodyguard to stand down. Tool number 1, the lookup hack. This is a purely physiological bypass. The moment you feel that unmistakable prickle in your eyes, physically tilt your chin and look at the ceiling, a high clock, or the top of a bookshelf. The why, looking down or at the floor, signals introspection and feeling to your brain. Looking up engages the visual cortex and signals alertness and environment scanning. It mechanically prevents the tears from pooling and falling, while neurologically telling your brain, we are still observing the external world. We are not retreating inward. Tool number 2, the math hack, the heavy hitter. This is the most effective way to shift blood flow instantly. Because complex math is a system 2 inches PFC function, the brain must divert resources to perform it. How to do it? Don't do 2 plus 2. Your autopilot can handle that. Try 100 minus 7, then 93 minus 7, then 86. By the time you get to 72, your brain has been forced to turn the lights on in the prefrontal cortex. It is neurologically impossible to maintain a heavy limbic sob while performing sequential subtraction. You are hijacking the engine. Tool number 3, sensory grounding, the 5, 4, 3, 2. 1. If you feel like you are floating away or losing your grip on the conversation, anchor yourself to the physical floor. The method. Quickly identify 5 things you see, the texture of the table, the color of their shirt, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you smell, and 1 thing you taste. This pulls you out of your 8K internal storm and forces you back into the 3D world. Tool number 4, the water break, the strategic reset. If the invisible tools aren't enough and you feel your voice is about to shatter, you need a strategic pause. The move, pick up a glass of water. If you don't have one, excuse yourself for 30 seconds to get one. The biology, when you take a slow, deliberate sip of water, the act of swallowing physically forces the glottis, the muscle in your throat that constricts when you're about to cry, to relax. You cannot swallow and sob at the same time. It resets the muscle spasm, smooths your vocal cords, and allows your adrenaline levels to dip just enough for you to return to the room on your own terms. The hardest scenario is when the tears are already falling. The leak has happened. In this moment, your instinct will be to apologize. Do not apologize. When you say, I'm sorry, I'm such a mess, you are signaling submission. You are telling the other person that your emotions are a defect they have to tolerate. Instead, we use a tactic called label and pivot. You name the biological reality so they cannot use it against you. The clinical label, I want you to know that these are tears of frustration, not sadness. My body reacts this way when I'm invested. Let's continue. The bold reframe, I care deeply about this project, so I'm having a physiological reaction. Please ignore the tears. My logic is still fully online. As I was saying, when you do this, you are asserting agency. You are telling them, my biology is reacting, but I am still the pilot of the ship. There is immense dignity in that. Use the power of the period. State your fact, then stop. You do not need to JAD, justify, argue, defend, or explain. You are a super sensor. Your capacity to feel is the same engine that fuels your empathy, your creativity, and your ability to spot risks before they become disasters. You're simply a high-performance vehicle that occasionally runs hot. The world has enough numbness. We don't need you to install a tougher filter or become a dandelion that grows anywhere because it feels nothing. We need people who feel the full 8K resolution of the human experience. But we need you to have a map for the storm. The next time you feel that heat rising in your chest, remember the logic seesaw. Look up. Do the math. Take the water break. And if the tears fall anyway, speak through them. To cry and yet to keep speaking your truth, that is not weakness. That is the very definition of courage. It is courage in 8K. You are not a broken adult. You are a high-resolution human being, fully and unapologetically alive. To help you navigate these high-stakes moments, I've developed a specialized resource called the Defense Protocol. It's a free PDF guide that includes a scripting template based on the cognitive science of implementation intentions. It helps you pre-program your brain. If I feel the lump in my throat, X, then I will use the math hack, Y. Mental rehearsal is the secret to staying calm when the fire starts.